Hi, and welcome to the Spiritual Awakener. This is a podcast where I get to interview really cool people that have cool stories to tell us about how they had spiritual awakenings and how they now help the collective. And if you want to hear my awakening story, pop over to episode 1 after you've listened to this one, where you can hear all about what happened to me one night. So thank you for joining us on the Spiritual Awakener podcast. And I can't wait to introduce my guest to you tonight. Her name is Anne van Gessel. Is that how I say it, Anne?
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant. And I met Anne on a Hay House writing workshop a few months ago. And we just kind of got together and talked. And I said, if she wanted to come on my podcast, I'd love to have her. So I can't wait for you to hear her story. So welcome. Thanks so much for being here, Anne. Tell us about you.
I guess first I want to say thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
I listened to your first podcast and I loved your message of being the space for others. Mm-hmm. And I really take that to heart, which I'll speak more about. So
that's amazing.
Thank you. and just to get out there, I am nervous, but I'm moving forward.
We've all done nervous in our life, and it takes a while before we're happy to be in front of the camera. But what's really important is that's a really good message, actually, because what we need to know is that nothing needs to be perfect. And I think sometimes if you're listening to this and you feel that interviewing someone means we're perfect, or even the interviewer or the host is perfect, that's certainly not the way it is. And so we have all of the work that we do on ourselves every single day of the week. It's not that we always get it done and then we're perfect. No one's perfect. So I just want you to hear that message, and it's humbling to hear Anne say that as well, because I think sometimes people see people as everything has to be exactly how it's meant to be, but actually it is how it's meant to be. Always, isn't it? Which is imperfect.
Yeah. I'm perfectly imperfect.
Yeah, exactly. So am I.
And this is a good segue into introducing myself. So
of course.
I would say I'm an empath. I'm an old soul. Yeah. I'm a coach, I'm a teacher, a student, a guide. I think of myself as a beacon for others. And listening to your first podcast, I really take it to heart to be that space for other people. My goal is actually equity in this lifetime.
Yeah.
So it really ties into that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And so would you say that there was, there's always lots of spiritual awakenings that we have that lead us on our path to be of service to others. Yeah. But what would you say was a significant moment in your life?
Yeah. So first I want to say, I think my spiritual awakening really spans over multiple of years. And it's sort of like if I imagine and picture like sprinkling fairy dust, and I'm just following the trail of fairy dust. But I also want to mention that this podcast is also a spiritual confession.
Yeah. Ooh, we like that. Coming out of the closet, I did that 12 years ago.
And I say that because very few people know how spiritual I am.
Yeah, that was me 12 years ago, out of the spiritual closet. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that also includes myself. I don't think I even realized just how spiritual I am.
Yeah. And you are a spiritual being having a human experience, right? As we all are.
Yeah. I mean, I used to say that, but not really fully feel it or understand it. Like I understood it here in my brain, but not in my mind
or actually embodying it, truly embodying it and walking it. I think that's one of the things, I hid behind being a psychologist and a psychotherapist, working with trauma for a long time, and I didn't think people would accept the spiritual aspect, and yet I was working with my guides the whole way through. I just didn't tell anyone. But you'll find that now you're stepping out of this closet, actually your mission is going to actually really open up. And this is great, because when people listen to this, you know, if you're listening to this and you feel that, you know, there's actually a point where you shift from being non-spiritual to spiritual, that's not really true. It's just that you find yourself and you become more authentic. Would you say that that's what it is? It's more authentically you.
Because it's I've been removing the layers, and it's surprising just how many layers there are, but that could just be a limiting belief, or actually it's really part of my fear, and that ties in with the spiritual awakening / confession. It's my fear of being afraid of being fully seen and fully heard.
Wow. So it was perfect that my team and your team lined up at that Hay House writing workshop, where mine were like, well, let's, you know, connect.
Absolutely. This is perfect. And like I said, I'm super grateful to be on this.
Well, we're grateful that you're here. So what do you feel, you know, I know you said there's many things that led you to kind of really awake, but is there something where you felt, oh my goodness, wow, actually it's time for me to say who I am?
So I want to give a little bit of a background. So like as a child, I honestly thought this was a magical world, and I still do. And my coaching program has a nickname for me called Magical Asshole. I don't know if I can
brilliant
say that.
Yeah, of course you can.
Bad word, you can bleep it out later. And what really that name points to is the sassiness, and which I sometimes comes out. That's the fear of being seen and fear of being heard. But anyway, the point I'm attempting to make is, at some point I thought it was a good idea to listen to what others thought, to decide for me, and I allowed that. And so I'm at this shift where my curiosity, sense of adventure, and desire to be my best self has always been my guiding point. And I've continued to follow that. And if I had to pick one biggest highlight, it's 2020.
Oh, wow. And we're in, just to say that if people listen to this later, we're actually the 13th of January, 2021.
Oh, yeah.
So just so people know, because sometimes, you know, get listened to a year later.
That's true. True. Yeah. So I would say
what happened?
The biggest awakening happened in 2020. And sorry, back up a little bit. Like, I forgot to mention this point. Like, as a child, I was very, which I'm putting in quotes, sensitive. Like I was sensitive to people's energy, just energy in general, people's feelings, and I felt very close to animals, and basically like what you would describe as an empath.
You sound like my son, my nearly 12-year-old son. He doesn't really like people. He only likes animals and doesn't really doesn't want to be around a lot of people, to be honest.
It's just like it can be very overwhelming.
Absolutely. And I think this is a really good point actually you're making, because there'll be people listening to this that have got children, and with what's been going on, you know, in the Great Awakening, let's say over 2020 and 21, you know, there's a massive awakening happening, and these children are so much more aware of what's going on, and of course they can't make sense of it really. So it might be that if you're listening to this and then you've heard this, that Anne's saying, you know, she was sensitive as a child, but perhaps then people were not aware so much as I was too, and they weren't aware, but now we can be much more aware of what our children are experiencing.
That is such a great point, because I think as adults, and I'm going on a tangent a little bit, like adults, we have the ability to have such great power. Like if we like were to able to go back to that child's essence and have the power and money, like I feel like we the possibilities are endless. And that is
freedom.
Exactly, freedom. And that's part of my goal of equity. And I feel very called towards that.
Yeah. So how do you help people? What do you do? So if someone's listening to this and they're like, well, we know, she said who she is, but what does she actually do?
Yeah. So I honestly think I'm the space for someone else to be their best selves. And I, like you said in your first podcast, I'm gonna keep going back to that. It's not about fixing anybody. No one needs to be fixed. It's just we just really need to be that space. And a lot of times especially in this fast-paced world, there's really no space. We're not holding any space. And so that's key. And I never thought of it as a gift, to be honest, until more recently. It's like, okay, you hold the space, like, so what? Like what other skills do you have? Like, can you juggle? Like,
stand on your head.
And I'm like, no and no. Like, and so really it's holding that space. And also the other piece is that I actually like to, and I do this for fun, to continue expanding my own capacity. And because, like I said, it's fun for me.
Well, we get that, as we're working with someone, it's not that it stops at that person. It's like this beautiful relationship, isn't it? This symbiotic relationship with someone where you're both kind of like dancing together in this energy. And
yes, absolutely.
And you get we get beautiful channel of light through us. So we're very blessed.
It really is a dance. It's a partnership. Absolutely.
So going back to last year, 2020, what you said you had this kind of, that was really like a pivotal awakening. What would you say was kind of going on?
So energetically, going back to my curiosity and adventure and wanting to be the best self, my best self, that's always been my driving compass, so to speak. And so the point I'm making is, I actually didn't want to change. Like I want to point that out. I was resistant, and the spirits, or maybe my spirits and the universe, they were having none of it. And because I'm so sensitive to energy, I was pushed, and then I finally did surrender and let go. So that was the pivot.
And that's similar, I didn't want to be a medium or a channel, you heard that in my thing. I resisted it for years and years and years and played like not being it. But, once you're on that, it's almost like a Saturn return, at age 26, 27, there's a Saturn return in astrology. And it's that time that we have a massive shift, and we can either choose to make it easy or choose to make it hard. And I made it hard.
That's funny, because I'm still 36. I turned 36 last year. And I've always thought of myself as a late bloomer. So I'm 10 years late.
Well, you probably weren't. It's just that you didn't realize, and it was,
Well, I actually feel 26.
Oh, well, there you go. You're having a Saturn return now.
Exactly.
So last year, so in 2020, you felt like you were being pushed. Was that because obviously here in the UK we've had a lot of lockdowns where we've had to stay in, and I always say that actually we've had to go within. So would you say not only have we been in physically, we've actually had to go within? So would you say that that's what happened? You had to go within and search?
It was actually, I was dating someone really special to me, and actually someone I consider to be my soulmate. And I won't go into details of what happened, but things ended between us.
Yeah.
And that was the trigger that really caused the start. And like I said, I resisted, and I that was just Ignite. So I want to speak about how it pointed to my belief, my inner fear that I'm unlovable. Like, and I've carried that since child. So it's not so much that the incident happened, it was the trigger of it. And
the journey.
And then given everything else that was happening in the world, it just was like a ignite to an explosion. And at that time when I met you, I started writing about my teaching memoir, about my journey with dyslexia. And so it sort of ties with that, because I've not looked at that part of me.
Yeah.
And you can't just hide one part of you.
No. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That one part of you. Yeah.
No. And so I've been invited to love myself unconditionally.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, you know, that I feel like the journey of the soul, you know, when we've chosen this physical body, we've chosen to be human this time. You know, people can argue with me about that, but you know, that's what my belief is, that, you know, we've chosen to have this jacket, which is our body. But the reason why I'm saying that is that all of that you said about loving yourself unconditionally, you know, that part of us already knows that. But it's the human part of us that has to catch up. It's just my belief, but we have to catch up with that soul that knows that we're seamless love. And I know on the astrology event last night, obviously you're on it, that's one of the things that was about, you know, like bringing that love so that we can manifest and create. But once we remember that, then that's when the authenticity comes in and we step out the closet, as you're saying, and we start to say, oh, okay, then I can't not be this, because this is actually who I am.
Yeah. And that resonates with me, like, because I do feel that delay. Like there's a part of me that's like, it's saying, there's like, I'm just going to say, like, it's like two different voices, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like one voice is saying, there's no good reason why you're not lovable. Like there's just really no good reason.
Yeah.
And then the other one's like, well, what about this? What about that? And so I'm like, all right, if you really want to go through that conversation, let's start decoupling, or like,
or acknowledging those parts of you that felt that, you know, really acknowledging those parts.
Like hearing the story and let it be heard. So I like that. There's definitely,
you know, I see it as, you know, lots of different children outside of us playing the role of the one that perhaps, oh, you can't do that, you couldn't possibly do that, you're not worthy, you know. And those are the parts of us, I think, those are the parts that we need to really acknowledge and give compassion to and heal.
So doing both, like acknowledging and decoupling.
Just so really that is not you, it doesn't define you. I think that's a really key message actually that you're saying, is that, you know, what has happened, whether it's dyslexia, whether it's abuse, whether it's, you know, relationships, whatever it is, it doesn't define you. But it creates a part of you where you're expanding more and more.
It's just a part, and they're all interconnected. You can't just, you know, hide that one piece in the closet.
No, because it's going to come out.
It's going to come out. Exactly. So
if you know, say, I mean, I think a lot of people at the moment are making decisions about relationships. I think that's massively happening, definitely with some people that I'm working with, or people in my ether of the UK anyway, are changing relationships or deciding that this person perhaps isn't for the long term, or whatever it might be. Have you got something you could say to them where, you know, because yours was a shock, you know, yours was like, I didn't expect that. That was really difficult, but it awakened you to standing fully in your own power, I feel. What would you say to people that perhaps are hanging on because it's familiar?
Yeah, well, two things come to mind. One is loving yourself the way you want to love somebody else. And so just really coming back to that unconditional love. And then also, who is it that you want to be? Because my hunch is, and I'll just speak for myself, like I've been in years of relationships that continue to foster the idea that I'm unlovable. And so is that really who I want to be? And I mean, one voice will say yes, but the other voice that speaks louder is and this is where I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent. Like it's bigger than me. Like if my goal is equity, I'm not going to serve anybody, not even myself.
Yeah.
If I play it small,
exactly.
if I think of myself as unlovable. And again, that ties with, you know, not being seen and heard because, you know, whatever it is, like I don't think I deserve it, or people are going to get bored. I mean, you can add on to that list. Yeah. So those are the two things that immediately come to mind.
And do you feel that, you know, when you look back on this, I know it was only last year, but when you look back and you can see, oh my goodness, I attracted that experience because of my belief then, which is not now. Yeah. So your belief now is not the belief it was a year ago or you know, however long ago, but the belief changed because of that awakening. Realize that you're actually worth more. Not that person's anything wrong with that person. He's not bad. He's not anything. He just is a reflection of what you believed then.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. You said it perfectly. I don't want to go into perfect or you said it beautifully.
It described it for you, for people. So, you know, if people are in these relationships and they're not working for them, I'm never an advocate of like just quitting something, you know, they need to do the inner work first. Absolutely. But because that inner work could be just what they need to build the relationship, right? But if they're looking at it going, well, this person's wrong and blaming and so on, then that, you know, that's only ever a reflection.
Yeah, because I want to make a point adding on to what you're saying. Like me and that other person breaking up doesn't have to happen for other people.
Yeah.
It just and that other person is on his own journey, and his and like you said, he was only reflecting back to me my own beliefs. And it was really because of my resistance to change. And I honestly felt that it took me a while to accept this. Like it needed to happen in that capacity. That's how shocking, and it was shocking to my system. And because I mean, like a soulmate, I'll just speak from my own like
perspective.
Like I'm not saying that's how it was. Like my inner hurt child was like, oh, my soulmate thinks I'm unlovable, right? That was the message I internalized. And that was what needed to happen for me to break through that. And it doesn't have to be the case for everybody else.
Exactly. But I think the really good point there is that it was the part of you, that little inner child part of you, that was saying, well, of course, because that's how I feel about myself, you know, and that was the part of you that was confirming it. But that was never true. It was just a little aspect of you, wasn't it, that was feeling that. So could people come to you with these sort of issues around, you know, what do you specialize in anything in particular, or what would you to people listening and want to get in contact with you?
Well, I would say my specialty is really so I'll just say my wish, and how I can support and guide. I
Mm-hmm.
like that language better, because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we all have a lot of gifts, and so I guide people to get in touch with their authentic self.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. And then it comes back to, I'm going to keep talking about equity. Like everyone can succeed, and we just all need something different, and we all need to believe that too.
Yeah,
we need to believe it in ourselves. We need to see it within ourselves before it can really happen. So that again ties back to the unconditional self-love. Yeah.
And what I'm also hearing, because my guides are obviously with me the whole time, what I'm hearing as well is that you help people reflect that back to themselves. So as you are there helping them, they're able to see that within themselves that perhaps they haven't been able to see. Is that how it works?
Exactly. Yeah. Because actually I like where you're going with this, because usually
the guides are good. It's quite handy to have a team.
Hilarious. And true and hilarious. I love, yeah, that's funny.
Very down to earth, called the barefoot, whatever.
Oh, I remember where I was going. It says the reality is going to always reflect back to us what I believe. And I believe I'm the beacon for other people's lives. So I'm going to reflect back to you what your essence is, which is going to be different from what everyone else is, or your circumstance. Beautiful. I think that's my gift.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So if people want to get hold of you, how can they meet you? How can they get contact with you? Tell us how they can.
Yeah, I would recommend going to my website, and it's www. I'll say my name first.
Yeah.
Ooh, something just moved in the kitchen.
Ooh.
So www.annevangessel.com, and then I'll spell my name.
Yeah.
So ANNEVANGESSEL.com.
Yeah. .com. Okay, good. And so they can contact you at your website, and then could they email you or contact form or something and ask to maybe have some time with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, 15 minutes to talk to you to see if you're a fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if they're a fit for you, if you're a fit for them. So you can offer that. Yeah. And and on your website is there sort of sessions they can book and so on?
Yeah, I don't have that capability at this moment. There's my phone number,
brilliant,
and my email. So
brilliant. So they can email you directly. Okay. Yeah. And have you written anything yet? Because I can't remember if you said you'd written a book or you're writing one.
Yeah, I'm currently writing 2 books.
Wow.
One is a teaching memoir about my journey with dyslexia. And to sum it up, the message I'm wanting to get out into the world is it's not good or bad. It's however you perceive it. It doesn't have to be a limiting belief. It doesn't have to be a kiss of death. It can be a gift if you decide to receive it that way. So that's the teaching memoir, and then also writing a children's book on an inspirational story around dyslexia.
Oh, wow. So that really helps. It's going to help parents as well as parents to talk to their children about it, which is amazing, and teachers and grandparents and anyone that's coming across that problem. And speaking about it as well, you know, for you to speak about that story, maybe come back on to the podcast and actually really speak about that story of how it was for you. You know, maybe when you put your book proposal in.
That would be lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, when you get it, you know, we can manifest a publishing contract for it.
Okay.
That would be great. Yeah, my book, I mean, since obviously because I met you on the Hay House workshop, mine's with editor at the moment, so my proposal's with the editor. So that would be interesting to see how that unfolds with the universe, with the guidance. So if you're listening to this and you're listening to this podcast and you're listening to Anne and myself, and something really feels very connected for you, and you feel like actually it's time for you to find that love within yourself and really know perhaps what your mission is, perhaps what you're really here for, and perhaps you've been playing small for too long, then it might be a really good idea to contact her at annvangessel.com. Am I right? Yes. So that's spelled ANNVANGESSEL.com, and you can contact her, have a look about what she's about. You can book a session and have a chat with her and see if you're a fit, see if it's what you really want to explore with her, and see if you are a fit together, because that's really important, isn't it? To see, if you are a fit energetically. But just trust that if you're listening to this and you feel drawn, then probably you're being guided by your very own guides to step in that right direction. And Anne's guides will work with yours, because she stepped out of the closet now. She's telling us all that she works with her team as well. Yeah, it's definitely stepping into our power, I feel, is really owning all of the things that perhaps in many lifetimes before we would have been killed for. Sent to the gallows or burnt at the stake or silenced for what we truly know, the wisdom that we have within us that we're sharing with the world now. And I think it also gives people permission. And what I wanted from this podcast really was that people could understand that their awakening is perfectly natural and normal. And even if they feel like you felt really, it was a real shock to you last year what happened, but actually a gift in itself. A gift.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it didn't take me overnight to realize
of course
that.
Not. Of course not. I mean, I remember that it was many, many years ago. My daughter's 13 now, my son's nearly 12. But when she was a baby and I was pregnant with the other one, that's when, I had this moment where I realized that the relationship that I was in with the father of my children was totally, emotionally abusive. And I'd attracted that, I totally take responsibility for that now. And I did on that journey. But at the time, that was a massive awakening that I hadn't, and I didn't know it was an awakening, as you're saying. I didn't actually know that sitting there on my bed crying, feeling really unhappy, pregnant with my then partner in a mental health hospital, and me on my own with two babies pretty much to look after. I didn't realize that was an incredible awakening. Right. But when I look back at it, if I'd have stayed in that relationship, then I wouldn't have stepped fully into my power as the person that I am today, helping so many people all over the world. So we just have to look at the adversity that happens in our life as a beautiful opportunity. So even people today that are, losing loved ones, and we know this is happening, fearing something outside of them that they feel might get them. Even this situation now that the world is going through, this is a massive opportunity to awaken.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? It really is. And so it might be time, if you're listening to this, it might be your time to contact Anne and just, make that first step on the journey of loving yourself. And Anne, do you have anything you could just share, my listeners, just to share with them, that if they're feeling, perhaps really depressed at the moment or really worried about their life, is there anything that you can just give them as a takeaway?
The word that's coming up for me is, do what you can and let go.
So surrender.
And surrender. And you know, surrender in the sense, not giving up, but
yeah,
just realizing that there is a bigger force out there. Again, this is coming from my spiritual confession.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, and there is a bigger force, and
yeah,
you know, there is always something within you that is an incredible force, wouldn't you say, that drives you forward.
Yeah.
And even when things seem really difficult and you have no idea how it's going to change, perhaps there's no money, perhaps you have no idea where you're going to live, whatever it might be, there's always a way forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to hear, isn't it? You know, there's always a way forward.
Yeah, I think of faith as like the capital F faith, and then the lowercase faith in yourself. Like, you don't have to know how, you know, just know, are you capable and are you willing? And can you trust that the universe has a bigger plan for you?
Yeah. And even if you don't trust, give it a go.
Yes, exactly.
because it's asking, you know, we have to first ask to receive, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, asking it is given.
Yeah.
And I think that is a great way to end this podcast, and to say to everyone that if you know, ask and it is given. And if you're listening to this podcast with Anne and I, then there must be a part of you that's been drawn to listen. And so make that step, maybe contact her and just say hi and just say how you're feeling and see if you can set up a time to talk. Okay, Anne, thank you so much for being on the Spiritual Awakener. It's been great fun. And definitely come back and talk about your childhood dyslexia journey, which has led you to where you are today.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you. So thanks for joining us on the Spiritual Awakener podcast. I've had fun. I hope you've had fun. I hope you've realized that there's a little bit inside of you that knew so much more than you thought you knew before about yourself, that you are this incredible being of light, having a human experience, and it's supposed to be fun. Much love to you all. Go across to susankennard.co.uk where you can find out more about me, and definitely listen to episode 1 where I got woken up in the night, and that started my spiritual awakening. Much love for now.